What is going on, Earth 2 novice, enthusiasts, and everyone in between? Yes, I am back at it after a pretty extended hiatus. I do apologize, but I had a lot of side projects going on in the real world, and I just didn't have the time to invest into shooting and editing and doing all the YouTube stuff. So my YouTube channels and all of my content creation did suffer for the last few months, and there have been a lot of new developments. I've been doing a lot of crypto trading, which is very time consuming. I've been doing that this whole year, and now some of that is coming full circle and bringing me back into the Earth 2 metaverse NFT kind of realm. So speaking specifically about Earth 2, there are a lot of really exciting developments, and I believe that this is probably the best time to get into Earth 2 or to recommit to Earth 2 since 2020. And that's when I originally got in. I got into Earth 2 in November of 2020, and here we are coming up on 2022, and there have been some developments that have not only shown a lot of progress in the project itself, but also some recent developments have made it a much more affordable investment for people to get into. So if you're not familiar, or if you are familiar, I'll give you the summary of what kind of transpired. Earth 2 launched at the end of 2020. I got in, as I mentioned, in November. I started making videos as I got really excited about the project in December of 2020. And they hit a couple of different milestones. We went from phase 1 to phase 2. Phase 1 was primarily just purchasing land. Phase 2 is where we started getting into the jewels and essence and some additional features. The maps are way more sophisticated now, and really for me to go over all of the developments that have happened over 21 would be it would be its own video, very extensive, and I don't want this to be too long, but just to kind of breeze over some of these. And I do have the intention to go a little bit more in depth in dedicated videos on some of these subjects, because they probably would benefit a bit more deep diving. But they did all sorts of stuff. They partnered up with MasterCard for a credit card. They started doing withdrawals to credit cards, which is something I've never seen before. You could have your money from Earth 2 withdrawn to your credit or debit card. So beyond just the buying and selling of this virtual real estate, you're also able to easily bring your money out. And that was a big concern for a lot of people, because the withdrawals were taking a lot of time because they were manual, yada, yada, yada. So in any case, what ended up happening is the way the game is set up, or this platform I should say is set up, is that as the land is purchased, the price of the land goes up. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a 1-to-1 scale replica of Earth. There is no metaverse project that I'm aware of that is on this scale, where it is going to be 1-to-1 scale. It's going to be as big as Earth, and that has a lot of its own unique benefits, a lot of geographic advertising possibilities and engagement through VR and AR. You could actually be in Earth 2 wherever you are physically, as well as traveling all over the world. But if you want to see what your office building or the airport that you're at or your home, what that's like in Earth 2, you could plug in eventually through AR or VR, and they're going to have an app as well. So this is really going to be a very extensive game as far as the possibilities with engagement. And as I mentioned before, the geographics for advertising and things like that, I think, are going to be something that sets this apart from everything else. Because you look at projects like Decentraland, which is cool and it's interesting in and of itself, but Decentraland doesn't overlay anywhere geographically. So there's nowhere near as much marketing potential as there will be with Earth 2. And it's just such a unique project that this is by far my favorite metaverse project. But as I mentioned before, purchasing land drives up the value of the land in that specific country. So the US was one of the first ones to adopt. So the price for tiles in the US, and each tile is 10 meters by 10 meters. As they get bought up, the price started skyrocketing, and the US was the front runner as far as pricing goes for the majority of the last year. Then it became a balance of supply and demand. So as some of these countries became very expensive, like the US, then people would start buying in cheaper countries, and it was very speculative. People were buying in, high interest areas, whether it's based on the foot traffic or the significance of that area, national monuments and vacation spots, tourist hotspots, malls, all sorts of places were being bought up, and there was a lot of speculation. It was very much, kind of like a wild, wild west situation where we know that there's an opportunity here. We have an idea as to where there's going to be some strategic places to buy and where it'll be some good ideas. But then there are also some places via the mega cities and some of these Discord groups and private groups that were popping up and deciding to buy in other areas, where those areas I believe are also going to become very valuable. And I'll do another updated video on some of the mega cities that I have purchased land next to and some that I have some involvement with in another video. Again, that'll go into its own depth. But one of the big problems is, as I mentioned before, when the land's getting bought up and the prices go up, it becomes more and more of a deterrent for new people and existing people to continue to buy. So that would start to taper off the cash flow for the project. So what they did, and I don't know how long they had this plan, because I saw it as a big weakness until the markets, and everyone was holding on to their land. So until the market started selling off and dropping the price, just like, if everyone in your neighborhood is holding on to their house or only willing to accept this much for their house, the value, you can't buy a house in that neighborhood for less than this, and you can't create more land because it's a finite amount of land. While there is still a lot of land available in Earth 2, that empty house in the neighborhood isn't getting bought now, in this analogy, because the comparable prices are staying this high, so it kind of gets a little stale. So what I thought was very genius is they had the different land classes, so that every 100,000 tiles in a particular country would bump the land class up from class 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and there would be less resources rendered slightly by each of those land classes as it goes up. But what they also decided to do was create tier 2 land. So effectively, while everyone has different class land already in the purchases they've made in the past, recently they decided to launch tier 2. So what that did is it locks everyone who's already made a purchase in as a tier 1 with variable classes, but everyone's tier 1. It reset the prices for all of the land throughout Earth 2, the entire Earth. Everything went back down to the original default price of just 10 cents. So when you see some of these countries who were selling for 60, 70, over $100 per square, now it's dropped down for tier 2 land. That same land in that area, the unbought land I should say, is now dropped down to 10 cents. Now, just to avoid confusion, what happens if you already own land in that area? Can someone buy that land again? No, that land is bought and it's owned. You can still purchase it from that person who owns it in the secondary market, which is another big part of this platform. A lot of people are buying and selling and trading amongst themselves. Well, not so much trading yet, but buying and selling land on the secondary market. So you're able to flip land or buy land maybe at a discount. If someone bought it at 10 cents and it's gone up to $20, they might be willing to sell it for $10, and that's an area you wanted to purchase, but instead of paying 20, you're now getting it for 10. You get the deal. That's the purpose of the secondary market. But you can also, and you can apply filters for all of this, so you're never going to make a mistake of thinking you're buying tier 1 land, but it's actually tier 2 land. It's very easy to apply the filters. But that was huge because now there's going to be, and there already is, a major influx of new money coming in to purchase this land. Because, for instance, when they've already seen that the land in the US is going to skyrocket, and it skyrocketed, and it was, like I said before, it was the front runner for the land prices increasing, that was obviously one of the first places where people start buying up land again, because there's a lot of interest in people owning land in the US. Odds are your home that you grew up in probably doesn't have a lot of interest, so you could probably still purchase that house that you grew up in, or whatever kind of sentimental value in different locations that you have, maybe your middle school or wherever else. You can still purchase those, but now you're not paying 60 something dollars a tile, because you're able to buy it as a tier 2 property. So again, That makes this a huge opportunity because this resets everything, allows more people to jump in and participate without having to spend as much money. You're getting more bang for the buck. And at the end of the day, you're still going to be able to own large chunks of land, and you'll be able to develop that as we get into later phases and we could start building. That was another thing that was introduced as well, is hollow buildings. So now you can actually go on Earth 2, and this is one thing I wasn't sure how they were going to pull this off when it comes down to putting buildings in the metaverse. Was it going to be done in a third-party software? Was it going to be done in their own software? Would you be able to buy it from, a secondary market and import it? Wasn't sure how that was going to work. Well, they have, at least for now, opened the ability for what they call hollow buildings, and you're able to go in there. And I've gone in and I've designed some of my own buildings. I used to want to be an architect, so I was pretty wasted a lot of time, or spent a lot of time, I should say. My fiance will say I wasted a lot of time, but I spent many of hours playing around with the hollow building feature and building my own buildings and whimsical structures that no engineer would even want to look at because they're just crazy and ridiculous. But I went to play around in that. You can do all sorts of stuff. I made a giant smiley face, and it's just a massive smiley face, three-dimensional smiley face building that's like, I don't know, hundreds of feet tall. But in any case, go into the hollow buildings, knock your socks off and play around in that. Or you can build some realistic stuff. You can recreate the buildings that are on that land already. So if you own a national monument or, the White House or something like that, you can go in to the hollow building, the hollow builder, I should say, and recreate it. Or I believe it looks like there's going to be a secondary market where you can buy the blueprints, and I don't think it's out yet, but you'll be able to buy the blueprints or sell your own blueprints. So if you're like me and architecture and CAD kind of stuff is interesting to you and you like playing around with that stuff, you'll be able to potentially create some buildings. And if people like the designs, I believe you're going to be able to sell them on a secondary market so that those people will be able to buy them. Now, I have a hunch that they will be allowing you to create NFTs out of those buildings. Let's mark that down in your journal. Let's fast forward and see if that actually comes to fruition. I have a feeling it will. Based on what I've seen, I've been pretty accurate with my predictions of seeing what's going on and what I think is coming. For instance, I also predicted that this would be an Ethereum-based project. That's another thing that's been confirmed recently. And some other things that are out, and I'll just run through them. So the biggest is the tier reset. We also have jewels. So now all of your properties are going to basically render jewels, I should say. They render jewels and ether. Now, ether can automatically be turned into essence, and essence is kind of like not so much a currency, but think of it more as, if you're familiar with cryptocurrency, a gas fee. So it's like a processing, it's like an asset, or I don't want to say a currency, but something that you would have a reserved amount of, and you use that to pay for transactions. So for instance, one of the things that you can do is you can take your jewels that your properties are going to be rendering for you. You can combine these jewels, these base level jewels, and you can combine them in with the combination, certain combinations of colors. Certain recipes will allow you, and that's what they call them, recipes. Certain recipes will allow you to combine those jewels and make a more rare jewel. Why would you want to do that? Well, this game has, this platform has so much depth to it. With that new jewel, you can then set it in at certain properties, and based on the jewels that you have slotted at those properties, your resources will be increased, as well as your ether production, which again converts into essence. So again, let's rewind this. You wake up, you go in, and each day your properties are rendering essence or ether and jewels. You take some of those jewels, or you could just hold them in your reserve. You can buy and sell them. There's a secondary market for that stuff as well. And you could also sell the rare ones that you've created. There's so much to this. But you take your jewels, you're like, okay, let me slot some of these jewels. I want this one, and this one's going to help me render more wood. This one's going to help me render more oil. This one's going to help me render more fresh water, and I'm going to put that at these certain locations. Resources haven't been turned on yet, but I believe that they are probably going to be turning the resources on shortly. They had to have these other things in place. So now when resources are turned on, those certain properties are going to naturally produce certain resources. Now you're increasing the amount of resources that are going to be produced by certain percentages. So you have so many joules slotted, you get another 2% of wood production, another 3% of fresh water production, so on and so forth. Now with those resources, I believe is when we're going to be able to start building even more things. You combine these resources and you're able to create buildings, or who knows. I think these guys have this way more thought out than I can even speculate. I could probably get close with a lot of things, but I think they have way more than even I would be able to fathom, because I don't even know, I'm not even familiar with the limitations that they have. It seems like they don't have many. It just takes time, as with any good thing, but with the amount of talent they've been attracting, it's some pretty exciting acquisitions that they've made, I'll get into in a little bit. But there's a lot of depth to this. So again, I could take the joules, put them right in, start creating more resources, and some will boost the amount of essence that you're creating. Or I can take those joules and through a process called shattering, and I'll probably do a video walks you through that. But again, I don't want to make this one too long. But you shatter the joules, you combine those shards, and then you're able to get those special joules that'll give you a boost in a combination of different resources and some extra essence. You're also able to improve the value of those joules using essence. So when you go to shatter them, this whole process consumes a little bit of essence when you shatter and then combine them to make these extra rare joules. And I was actually I probably made several $100s on the secondary jewel market, because what I was doing is since I'm getting these joules and I'm not really getting resources right now, and I have hundreds of these different types of joules, I've just started shattering them, combining them, making the rare joules, and then I was selling them, and I was selling them for $3 to $4 a pop for these rare joules. And I would just, every day I'd spend 10 minutes shattering, making, and then listing them. And like I said, I made several $100 doing that, and I laughed every time I did it, because this game has so many different ways. I keep calling it a game, and it feels like I'm doing it a discredit by saying it's a game. It's a platform. It is its own metaverse, but there's so many different ways to make money in it. And I've been saying this in my older videos. This isn't even anywhere near what the potential is going to be. People are going to have full-time jobs in this. If you look at projects like Decentraland, there are people who make clothing in NFT forms for the avatars that you have walking around the games. People are going to be, as I mentioned before, designing buildings. I'm pretty sure there's going to be vehicles. Speaking of vehicles, let's talk about a recent acquisition that they've made that's very exciting. There's a game called Drone. I wasn't familiar with this drone, but looking at it, I'm way more excited. This was has a huge following for the game Drone, and basically what you do in the game Drone is you are able to build bases in Terraform. You're also building your drones, and they're able to go in these different ships that you build. You're able to customize them and completely build them from scratch, it looks like. And you're able to go to battle and have these different drone fights. It's a very in-depth game in and of itself. And for those of you who may or may not be familiar, Earth 2's idea, as I mentioned, it does it a disservice to call it a game, because it is going to be a game. It will have its own games on it, but it is also going to be a platform for other third-party programs to host their games on there. So they're not going to have to worry about building out these fantastic worlds. You'll basically be able to take the different figures, or whatever else, in this case the different vehicles from a game like Drone, and host it on the platform that's already built out. So imagine Grand Theft Auto. You take all the characters and physics and rules and attributes and accessories from Grand Theft Auto, and then Rockstar Game makes it so that it could just be hosted on Earth 2, and now you've got an entire world to run around on. Ready Player One is always a great reference to look at, because you look at all those different characters and vehicles and buildings and everything else that was going on in that one metaverse. This is what Earth 2 is going to be. Whereas you look at Decentraland, and Decentraland has like little games in it where like you can own your own land, and you can have like a stupid little remote control race car game within it, but it's still basically a metaverse game within the game. This is going to be something where a drone looks like it's going to be the first example where they've acquired Drone, so they've got all the talent from that team. I believe 2 of the developers from Drone already came over to Earth 2. Let's also not forget Facebook is getting into the Meta game, and by changing their name to Meta, and then Facebook Oculus Rift, that's one of their assets. And Oculus, one of the founders of Oculus, is also already a founder in Earth 2. So we see a lot of overlapping, and I still think there's a huge potential for Facebook to potentially acquire, have some kind of involvement with Earth 2, because who else is this far ahead on such a grandiose project? The entire world, 1-to-1 scale replica, that blows every other metaverse project out of the water, in my opinion. And even if someone wants to copy that idea, and I've seen some other companies claiming they're going to copy the idea, they're nowhere near this far along. And I don't think they have an idea that, I don't think they have the level of thought that would be able to copy the idea and outpace what they've already done. These guys are always going to be the front runners. It's just like SpaceX. You can say that you want to start a private space company, but SpaceX is so far ahead that it's going to be very hard for you to innovate your way ahead of them when they're already on the cutting edge, have the eyeballs, have the money, have the experience, and also already have all of the talent and brains. So in any case, going back to some of the other developments, they've also partnered up with Polygon. I'm probably going to do videos on Polygon, the acquisition of Drone, as well as, you know, maybe making some jewels. Also gifting. And here's a cool thing, and here's my thought on gifting. They recently, and I've already gifted some NFTs. I've got a buddy who's getting married, and he's got a secret location, secret venue for his wedding. I'm not going to disclose what it is, but he told me what it is. I'm actually the best man, so I kind of knew it was in the short list. So in any case, I went and I bought that location of his wedding for one of his wedding gifts. It's not going to be his only wedding gift, but that's going to be one of his wedding gifts. Now let's think in the future. Here's my idea. I want to get all of the pictures and video from the wedding day and eventually make that spot a building that has all of those pictures and videos as NFTs. So you're basically going into a virtual reality 3D photo album of the wedding. And just think even further in the future when we're able to have, you know, 3D cameras that are going to be recording, you know, you have the compression, efficiency and everything else. You'll be able to have a high def complete representation recording of events transpiring at that venue and be able to host them in the metaverse. So you can visit that from anywhere in the world or go there in AR if you're at that location and look around, and you'll be able to see, you know, interact with the videos and the pictures taken from his wedding day. So that's a special wedding gift that I'm excited to give him, and that's available through the new gifting feature on Earth 2. And basically what you can do is, let's say you find an area and you want to gift it to somebody. Maybe it's their childhood home. One of the first purchases I made when I got into Earth 2, and I told a lot of you this in the beginning, was I bought the spot where I proposed to my fiance in Vail. I also bought spots on the top of Kilimanjaro, which is where my fiance's father went when he was a much younger man, grew up in Africa. And that was like one of the highlights of his life, was summiting Mount Kilimanjaro. So I bought spots on the summit. But imagine now taking photos and making that like an immersive experience where he can visit, you know, without leaving Florida, he can visit Mount Kilimanjaro in VR, see some of the pictures of him and his friends from way back when they were in their 20s, from their hike up Mount Kilimanjaro in a virtual photo album there that I'll make, you know, a building and make it like this whole walkthrough. And if you want to see a cool project that'll give you some ideas, I keep referring to Decentraland. You can go to Decentraland, which is already, it's nowhere near what Earth 2 is going to be. The definition, the realism of Earth 2 is going to be so much more beyond what Decentraland is. But if you want to check out Decentraland, go to Decentraland's website. You can set up a guest account so you don't have to set anything up. and go play around. Go into some of the buildings, you go into some of the houses that people own, and they've created games, they've got their NFTs on display. Some of them already have art museums set up. So you can get an idea as to where this merger of NFTs and the metaverse and VR, AR are going to be. I'll probably make another video that goes into my revamped strategy for investments. So keep an eye out for that. Should have been some stuff probably popping up. If I got a chance to already record that stuff, you'll see little tags popping up here and there along this video that'll go into the deeper dives of some of the topics that I've created. I gotta shoot the videos and edit them first, so probably not right now while you're watching this, but stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. You got the alert notifications on. I'm also going to be doing some more land giveaways. I liked doing that before. I haven't really been playing around with Earth 2 aside from just collecting my essence and playing around with my own stuff. But now that I'm making videos again, I'm going to go back to doing the giveaways. So again, if you're new, please use my referral code. You'll get 5% back when you make your purchase, and show me that you've used my referral code to make your purchases, and the links to do all that are going to be in the show notes below. And you'll be entered into a weekly raffle where I'll be giving away some land. Basically, I get a kickback whenever you make purchases. I have the account set up to just, it goes to a side account that I have where all the money in that account. Right now, I think I still have like $33 left in that account, and that's from everyone else's money. So I'm going to go in, make some land purchases, and I'm going to be giving that away this week for the raffle. So if you want to enter that raffle, all you have to do is go in, make some purchases. I'm going to buy some land. I think I also still have some land in that portfolio, and I will give it away to you. Well, I might be able to gift it to you now. If not, worst case scenario, you're going to pay a penny for it, and I'll reach out to you and tell you how to do that. I'm hoping I can start carving out time to at least be recording and editing at least weekly, but there seem to be a lot of developments that I have to get caught up on. So I am going to try to do a lot of recording and editing in the near future, but with New Year's and everything else going on, can't make any promises. But thank you for tuning in. I hope you're subscribed to not only this channel, but my second channel. I've got 2 channels now. Both the links of those are going to be in the notes below if you haven't subscribed already. And check out the links for more information, giveaways, and all sorts of other fun stuff. And I hope you enjoy playing around with Earth 2. I think, like I said before, I think it could be a great investment. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. None of this is financial advice, but if you want to get involved with Metaverse, I think this is going to be the front runner in the not too distant future. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one.